This is me asking you and giving you permission to have the conversation with your spouse as a family. When do we call it quits? Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family podcast. This is the place where families who have or want to have a nomadic lifestyle come together to talk about the highs and lows that this life brings. We celebrate the joys and support each other in the hard. So, if you are a digital nomad family, or will be in the future, this is the place for you. We're glad you're here. Hey guys, Marissa here. I hope that you guys are doing good. I'll tell you what, y'all. Coming in to record this podcast has been, you know how like some things you feel like you just can't get to them? That's what recording this episode has been. I feel like there's been just a lot of roadblocks, if you will, it's been such a busy week. So I'm so happy to finally be sitting down and recording this, because this is our last Disaster Diaries episode. And I think it's a really important topic. As you probably saw, it is all about when do we stop, right? When do we call it enough, or call it quits, or go home, whatever word you want to use. And so we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But before we do, I just wanted to say thank you so much. In the last episode, I told you guys that about 40% of the people listening weren't subscribed, and y'all stepped up. So thank you so much. You really moved that number. I really appreciate it. So all I'm going to say now is, if you are listening to this and you are not subscribed, I would appreciate it so much. I heard another podcast person, he's like a radio personality podcast guy. He said, if you would go and subscribe, leave us a rating or review, we'd really appreciate it. Not because our egos need it, but because the algorithm needs it. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is such a perfect way to put it. Because it's not like I'm sitting here going, oh my goodness, I want this, like just for myself. I am very, as we talked about in last week's episode, I'm very sassy. I am very secure. I feel accepted, and I feel significant with who I am just as Marissa. But in order for other people to find this, sadly, we do have to kind of play into the algorithms a little bit, and that's things like ratings, reviews, and subscriptions. So thank you guys so much. So if you're listening to this and you haven't pushed that plus button, or whatever the button is on the app you're listening to it on, I would really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. And today, we tomorrow are going to a fundraiser for the church that we're attending here. It's a Spanish-speaking church, so that's a blast. But there's many people here that speak English. English is, we have found actually there are more English-speaking people here than there were in Mexico City. So that's kind of cool. And so, but tomorrow there's a fundraiser for our church. And so we have been baking today, me and the kids, because what they're doing is like a rummage sale, kind of, like you bring some stuff and then they resell it. But we live out of carry-on baggage. And so I'm like, we don't have anything that we can donate, but I can bake you some cookies. And so that's what we've been doing all day. So it's been fun. We're all excited about the fundraiser tomorrow. We love getting involved with local churches, with local communities, with local charities. It is a blast. It makes your connection to the city you're in that much deeper, because you know you're actually having a positive impact on it. And I would encourage all digital nomads to get involved, especially if you are staying somewhere for months on end. If you're just there for a few weeks, I totally get it. You don't have enough time to live life, do the tourist stuff you want to do, and get involved. Totally get that. But if you're in a place for many, many weeks, I would highly encourage you to reach out to some type of charity or organization and get involved, because it is just so rewarding. And you make really great connections that way, and we just love it. So that's what we're doing tomorrow. Something else that happened this week, and I would love to know your opinions. Would you find value in this as a podcast episode? Riley and Ryan needed their passports renewed. And so we did that while here in El Salvador. And it was so easy. And so I'm curious, would you want to learn more about that? Or are you kind of like, hey, Marissa, no, don't talk about that. We all know how to renew a passport. Don't even talk about it. So let me know. Are you interested in a passport renewing outside of your passport country episode, or no thanks, let's not talk about that? Oh, okay. Let's talk when to stop. And I think that this is not going to be a super in-depth episode, because this is a very personal decision. And so this is me asking you and giving you permission to have the conversation with your spouse as a family. When do we call it quits? I think that there can be good reasons and bad reasons where you feel like you maybe need to go back to your passport country. But I think it's one of those things that, in order to just be the most responsible that we absolutely can as parents with all these responsibilities we have, the last thing you want in a situation is to go, oh, is this the moment? And so kind of, if you have a list, right, of, in these situations, we're going to, at least, maybe it's not like a hard, yes, we're done. We go back to wherever quote unquote home is. But it's okay. If this happens, we need to have a conversation, and we need to take it seriously. And I don't want to give you that list. I just want to encourage you and your family to think about what it is for you. So I can tell you a couple of the things that we have talked about for us, but please don't feel like you need to adopt these into your family as well. So a big one for us is if family back in the United States absolutely needs us. And by that, I mean long-term physical illness type situation, where we need to physically be there. And so if we know that maybe someone gets a diagnosis and it's not going to go the way we want it to, and they are looking at a more limited time here on this planet, we have made the decision that we would go back so that our kids could spend time with that person. And we're talking mostly grandparents, or like really close aunt and uncle type people. Again, you have to decide that for you. There is no judgment if you are not close to your family and you wouldn't go back in this situation. We do have certain people in our family that we wouldn't, but we definitely have some people that we have said, if, God forbid, they get a diagnosis and sadly the prognosis is not going well, we would choose to go back so we can spend as much time with that person as possible. And we would live near them and be very involved. And don't you guys kind of just really not like this series? But again, I told you they're not going to be fun topics, but I do think that they are important. So that is a big one for us. If someone sadly gets sick, and we really feel like we need to be there for that person and with that person, we would go back to the United States. Another kind of negative reason we would choose to go back to the United States is financial. And again, only you can make this call. If we feel like living this lifestyle isn't financially feasible, if we feel like, hey, all we're doing is moving from one apartment to the next apartment, but we don't have enough money to actually go do adventures, we don't have enough money to go enjoy this lifestyle, well, then at that point, we kind of ask ourselves, what is the point of it? Like if all we're doing is sitting in an apartment all day, which we do that a lot. I don't want you to think that we're not out and about constantly. But if it gets to the point where we're like, oh, we can't afford to even go do this kind of inexpensive museum that we really want to do, we might need to re-examine what we're doing, and is it making the best sense financially, especially knowing that we have 4 kids and everything like that. Another reason we would go back, another negative reason we would go back, is if one of the 4 of us, or not, one of the 4 kids, or me or Eric, got really, really sick or really, really hurt. We'd probably make the call to go back to the United States and deal with doctors that there is no language barrier, that we can have the quote unquote comforts of home that we're just used to. So at that point, we would make the call to go back. So those are kind of like some negatives, and I know they're not fun, but I wanted to just get them over with. And I do think it's worth having a conversation with your spouse and saying, or significant other, whoever you're traveling with, right? And say, okay, what are kind of the negatives that would take us home? And then, of course, there's unexpected things. How many travelers had to go back to their passport countries when COVID happened? And so that is definitely something that always needs to be on our radar now. I think that 2020 really kind of changed this idea of us having the freedom we think we have as full-time travelers. It kind of put us on our plates a little bit. So those are the negatives. There are some positive reasons as well. Depending on how long we keep traveling, we would totally settle down if one of our kids were to get married, have children. We would want to be near our grandbabies. And so if you are in a season where you're traveling, but maybe your kids are a little bit older, I think that that's a very fine reason to say, hey, once the grandbabies come, I'm settling down. I tell my kids all the time, I am going to be an amazing grandma. I'm going to make you angry at how good of a grandma I am. And you're going to go, where was this person when I was a child? Yeah, I'm excited. And my oldest is 16. So we are hopefully very far away from grandbabies, but oh man, I am already excited about it. So that would be a positive reason that we would settle down. Another positive reason that we would settle down is we just feel like this season is over. And not in a bad way, not in we've exhausted it, but we just feel, okay, we've done that. That was right for that time. And now it's time to settle down and get involved in either this organization that we really like, or be with family and friends and on a more consistent basis, whatever it is. But we just feel like, okay, that season of being a digital nomad family, it's very okay, and we're very comfortable saying that season is over. Now, I don't think any of us are ever going to fully say goodbye to travel. If you are a nomadic person in your heart, so this isn't me saying that we're never going to get on an international flight again. This is just saying that we'll buy the house in the United States, or do that quote unquote rooted life stuff. And then another reason that we would decide to go back to the United States is if we kind of felt like our kids needed it, and not in a negative way, but if we felt like, okay, they have soaked up everything that we wanted them to as a nomadic child, right? They have seen the world. They have got to know people from different cultures. They are very open-minded now. They are very loving of different walks of life. And that's exactly what we wanted. It's almost like you've reached your goal with your kids. I think that's an okay reason to settle down as well. And so I do think that there are positive and negative reasons, and only you and your significant other, your spouse, can make that decision for your family. But this is me asking you and encouraging you to just have that conversation with them. And then the second part of the conversation that is also very important is, okay, what do we need to do in order to go back home, if you will? And this is going to take some thinking. For us personally, it's going to take quite a significant amount of cash to get back to the United States and have a life. And not that I would want the life similar, but we weren't living lavishly to begin with. But we sold all of our furniture. The only furniture we own is Eric and I's mattress and I think our bed frame. Because we had just purchased, before we transitioned to nomadic living, we had just purchased a pretty expensive Sleep Number mattress, and it just kind of hurt our hearts to sell it. I mean, we had this thing for maybe like 2 years, and so it was very new, and so we kept it. But that's our only furniture. And so what are you going to need? Like, actually examine your life. Are you going to need beds? Like, our kids don't have beds in the United States, and so we would have to buy them. We don't have a couch. We don't have a television. We don't have, most of our kitchen is gone. So I think I kept some plates, maybe. Did I? Now I honestly don't remember, guys. I don't think I did. So all of these things need to be purchased. And so having a way that you are going to save so that when that happens, because I do think eventually everyone will stop being nomadic. I have yet to meet a family that is nomadic 100% until everyone either gets married, establishes their own house, or they pass away. Like, I have yet to find a family like that. So having in your head, okay, eventually, it could be in 10 years, which is totally fine. But eventually we are going to settle down again. Okay, well, what are you doing right now to make it not as stressful of an experience for when that is going to happen? Or let's say one of the worst case situation happens, one of the negatives happen, right? Are you going to be able to settle down and get the house and everything like that, and not have it be a stressful situation on top of a medical diagnosis of one of your parents, right? And so I hope that all of this is coming through, and I hope that you know that this is coming from a place of love, and I don't want to like scare anyone or freak anyone out. Like, that's not my intention. And I know this is the last one, guys, of Disaster Diaries, and after this we can be happy again. We don't have to dwell on the negative so much. Honestly, our very first family core value is dwell on the positives, address the negatives. And so this has been like really interesting for me to do, because I feel like we've really dwelled on the negatives in this series, but I hope that it has catapulted you into some conversations that maybe you haven't had yet. Maybe you know you have to have them, but you've just been putting it off. And so I'm hoping that what this episode is, just kind of a catapult to get you into that conversation. And you can go, okay, here's what I would want to see happening. Maybe it's every month. Maybe it's like saving a little bit every month. Maybe it's within the year I want to do this, or just whatever it is, right? Now, and that's my family, right? My family, the 6 of us, we don't have a home in the United States. We don't have furniture, but that doesn't mean you don't. So maybe you are renting your house right now. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Not only do you have a place you can go back to, but you're getting hopefully a little bit of monthly income from that as well. So I think that is a great option for people if you owned your house before you became full-time nomads. But what would you need to do in order to legally get your tenant out? And hopefully your contract already has that. But, just review it, look it over, just make sure, right? This is just your reminder to make sure that your ducks are in a row before a bad thing happens, right? Because I think that's the point of being ready for the worst case situation of these disasters, that if we're a little more prepared for them, they're not as stressful. They're still bad, right? They're just not as, we've kind of eliminated a little bit of the stress that we could experience with them. So I hope that all of that makes sense. We're going to just wrap it up here because, again, I really don't want to tell you what you need to do. I just want to encourage you to have the conversation and just kind of have a plan working so that when you decide to be done, when you feel it's time to be done and move on to a different phase of life, because that's all life is, right? All life is just this season we're doing this, next season is that. Like, that's all life is. And I think nomadic people understand that really, really well. I think you guys get that. Just sometimes it's hard for us to think about this ending, right? Like, it's so hard to think about your nomadic life ending because it's such a big part of you, right? But we have to kind of let that go, and we have to kind of be okay with whatever is coming down the road. And the more we prepare for it, the less freaked out we're going to be. And if you and your spouse have a conversation about it, then you're just going to be more ready, right? And you're going to be able to say like, hey, we did say, and this is breaking both of our hearts. Like, neither of us want to go back right now. Like, we don't feel like this time is done, but we did say that this takes priority over the nomadic life. Does that make sense? And so I just am sitting here encouraging you to have that kind of annoying, kind of heartbreaking conversation and come up with your positive and negative reasons. So yeah, I hope that you guys are doing well. I am going to go and bake a little bit more for tomorrow. Really excited about tomorrow and about being involved with a local church and just being able to help in a local community. It's been such a blessing and very rewarding. So with all of that, I hope that this episode encourages you. I hope it inspires you to have meaningful conversations with each other. And yeah, just make your plan. And it can only be what you need it to be. So I hope you guys are doing well. And as always, I hope you continue to travel joyfully.